The record-setting Miami Dolphins offense was definitely one of the Week 3 winners. We're talking about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is former NFL scout Matt Williamson. Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, it's a Monday, and here we are. This feels a little weird. The chair's not quite as comfy as normal, but we're going to be here. We're going to be here all week long because we've got some big news in the Locked On Dynasty family. Marcus is a daddy. They welcomed a new addition to the Mosher family. We're certainly excited for them, and we're going to hang out here all week while Marcus tends to the new addition, and Kate's just going to take it easy this week. So good for her. But we'll be here all 5 days. And today specifically, we're taking a quick look back at Week 3. Of course, we have a couple games left in the Week 3 slate, but it is not too early, certainly, to look at some winners and losers. And Matt, I would say at least one of the winners is very, very obvious from this week. So I'll just kick it to you. First winner from a dynasty standpoint, based on what you saw in Week 3.
Well, congrats to Marcus, and you and I will do all 5 this week. So bring it on. If people have anything, we got a whole slate of stuff intact here, so it'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
I guess I have to take the low hanging fruit. I mean, you mentioned it briefly to start the show. When you score 70 points, it's rather noteworthy in the NFL, and
catches our attention, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to miss that. And I think the rookie running back out of A&M, DeVon Achane, is now somebody we have to discuss thoroughly, and maybe even a step further. I mean, some of these down the line receivers and tight ends, and just the whole situation. I mean, I want Mike White if I'm in a Superflex league. I mean, I want anything I can part of this offense, to be honest with you. And, oh, by the way, their second best offensive player didn't even play in this game.
Yeah, did all that without Jalen Waddle. Really, really an unbelievable performance. I did see a note from Adam Schefter earlier today that after the game, that the running back noted that his name should be pronounced DeVon Achane. DeVon Achane. So that takes some getting used to. Not Achane, but Achane. So we'll probably get that wrong. Yeah. Hey, he gets to tell us how to say that name. So DeVon Achane, though, was obviously amazing. I mean, this was really his first significant action of the year. Sat out Week 1. There was that lingering injury, but most considered him a healthy scratch in Week 1. And I mean, we talked about it on here, and it was a big story that in the preseason he was not able to overtake guys like DeVon Achane. He was actually even playing behind Myles Gaskin, who ended up not making the Dolphins' final roster. So Achane was essentially buried in that backfield, and we knew both with the talent, with what they spent to get this player, and honestly, unfortunately, with the injury history to Mostert and to Jeff Wilson, this was not going to last long. We were going to see the rookie eventually. I don't think anybody expected this, though. Over 200 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 30 yards in the air, and 2 more scores. and you're right. It's not. It's Achane is the story from a dynasty standpoint because he's a rookie, because he's, it was his first real action. But this entire offense is one that we want to chase, to invest in, to have pieces of on a week to week basis, and obviously from a dynasty standpoint.
Without question. And I own no stock of DeVon Achane. I'm going to kill that whole time.
Achane.
Okay. Because frankly, I might have a blind spot in my dynasty analysis against the really small skill guys, but this isn't 1985 anymore. I mean, people play in space and speed kills, and the Dolphins' style of play and offensive design accentuates that more than any. And frankly, he's not a Dexter McCluster, Dree Archer gadget dude. He has running back traits. You can line up and hand him the football in a traditional manner, and maybe even more so than a Darren Sproles. He can do flat out running back stuff. So I feel like I said, sold him short. And is he going to go for 18, 203, 2 every week? Of course not. But, and I also don't think he plays the Denver defense every week either. They play Miami next, or play Buffalo next week, which should be a blast. But man, he's super impressive, and he's in a perfect spot.
Yeah, the perfect spot for sure. I'm glad you mentioned that, maybe that blind spot, or that, I don't know, that
it's a prejudice for me. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Against those smaller players. I actually mentioned that on the DLF podcast this week as well, because there's Achane. There's another rookie who has impressed the past couple of weeks, Tank Dell.
Absolutely.
I underranked him because of his size. And even going back a couple of years, I had my doubts about Devontae Smith, who was obviously a very highly drafted player, but I was worried about his frame, his build, and if he could survive in the NFL. And obviously on different degrees, all three of those guys are flourishing. So that doesn't mean every small speed guy is going to play as well, but I do think it means we should not automatically discount these guys just because of their size, especially like Achane, if they're a day 2 pick, or certainly a first rounder, like in Smith's case. Matt, my winner this week, I just mentioned the name Tank Dell. He was so impressive, and so was his quarterback, fellow rookie CJ Stroud. Stroud goes for 280 and 2 touchdowns. That follows up last week's game when he threw for over 300 yards. Of course, the difference here is this week they won, and they consistently led that game over the Jacksonville Jaguars throughout. It was really a dominating performance for Houston. They're missing some key pieces on offense, most notably on the offensive line, missing some guys on the back end of that defense as well. And you could not tell. This team is fun to watch, and it starts with Stroud and his rookie receiver, Tank Dell.
Yeah, it's just coincidental, but that's the Steelers' next opponent. So I started advanced scouting these guys over the weekend, like Friday, Saturday, after I did all my work for Steelers Raiders. And some impressive stuff about this offense. Like, it's even before this game, it was pretty apparent that Dell, Nico Collins, who I think we both are really high on, and Robert Woods are the top 3 receivers. Their roles are pretty set. They throw the ball a ton. They have 0 running game, so that's great for Dell, as well as these other receivers and Stroud. You mentioned the O-line. You sold that issue a little short. I mean, the past 2 weeks, they played with 1 starter. I mean, Shaq Mason's the only guy off their starting 5 that is out there. I mean, and Tunsil should be back at some point soon, so there is, it should be looking up in that way.
Right.
And this past week was a little bit of an odd game that things are just not quite clicking for the Jags. Have a lot of drops, a lot of special teams errors, like they had a kick block, the fullback scored on a kickoff return, and just things aren't going as planned for Jacksonville. And Houston jumped all over them, and Dell was a huge reason why.
Later this week, we are going to have our rookie report. That's going to be Thursday's episode. We will talk more about DeVon Achane, more about CJ Stroud, and more about Tank Dell in that episode. And I look forward to seeing where we're ranking these guys in big picture of dynasty leagues and overall compared to veterans around the league. We'll do that on Thursday. Coming up, we're going to talk about some dynasty losers, players that did not impress in week 3 and could be losing some value. We'll do that next.
So we have talked quite a bit about LinkedIn, and man, I always think about back in my scouting days, if there was some sort of service like this to get your name out to teams at the college level, at the NFL level, I would have done anything possible for that opportunity just to get your name in front of people. And every day, every potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. And you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. So that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and free. I mean, they have simple tools like screening questions, make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Super easy process over and over. I mean, you get the right people for your team. It's why small businesses ranked LinkedIn Jobs #1 at delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs help you find your qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. That's the whole key. More efficiently. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
All right, Matt, we're back. It was not all rosy in week 3. We had the impressive play of the Dolphins, the Texans, and several others, but we had some losers, some players that struggled. Maybe their future doesn't look so bright. Who's your first dynasty loser from week 3's action?
Well, we touched briefly or heavily on the Texans situation, and sometimes teammates' gains are another teammate's loss. And boy, I really was excited about Dameon Pierce this year. And maybe it gets better when they get some O-line help back or get some people out of the box with this passing game. But it's just not clicking for this guy at all. And when they started to get a lead, his role even fell even more, which doesn't help his fantasy owners. I don't know if they're going to be beating teams consistently week after week, but it has been a miserable second season for Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think through the first 2 weeks, the Texans were 0-2, and at least you kind of had an excuse for why Pierce wasn't putting up big numbers. I know some disappointment that he wasn't seeing very much work on the passing downs. We kind of thought that might be the case after the preseason. But he's getting pulled on third down. But then you think if they can just get the lead, they can run the ball. They can feed this guy who was so successful as a rookie. And as I said, the Texans led in that game throughout. The Jaguars never had a lead. Pierce gets 14 carries for just 31 yards. He does score a touchdown. He also caught 3 passes, a season high, I believe. So, a couple of bright spots to kind of save his fantasy stat line. But the 14 carries and certainly only 31 yards on those carries was troubling if you've got Dameon Pierce and you were planning to use him this year.
Yeah, and I hope it gets better because he's a good player, and all the things we mentioned, the young quarterback's going to get better reputation, and O-lineman will come back. But right now, you can't use them.
No, we've got our new October AP. We'll start that and have some new data for you over the next week or two. But looking back at September ADP, Dameon Pierce was RB20. DeVon Achane was RB34. That feels very, very wrong right now. We might have to flip those two at the very least, if not move Achane up even higher. I've got an interesting loser here because this loser had the best game of his season. Pretty easily actually, but I'm still concerned about Alexander Mattison. Of course, we see the Vikings make the trade for Cam Akers last week. Akers was not active on Sunday, so Mattison essentially had the backfield to himself and played well in a game that we knew. Well, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Put up some decent numbers in a game that we knew would be high scoring. He carries the ball 20 times for 93 yards, catches 5 passes for 32 more yards. So well over 100 total and a solid day. But he lost another fumble.
No.
This has been the problem for Mattison and really for this entire team. They cannot hang on to the ball, and now they're 0-3. I'm worried about Alexander Mattison. I'm not sure Cam Akers is honestly going to be that much better or maybe be any better, but this running game for the Vikings is terrible right now.
Terrible. And they, going into this past week, I haven't looked since, are the pass happiest team in the league. They just don't choose to run the ball. Yeah, it had to be, right, because it's so bad. Raiders are another team that's run the ball really poorly. I mean, there's a couple out there, but none worse than Minnesota. And the O-line's had some injuries, so maybe that gets a little better. But I frankly don't think they have very good ball carriers. I think Madison's a backup that's proving to be a backup. And I don't know that Akers is going to cut into his workload or not. But this seems like a golden opportunity to get out from under Madison after a decent game if there's some believers out there.
Taking a second rounder for him?
Yeah,
I am as well. Matt, we've got a couple more losers, maybe even one more winner. Maybe we'll end the show on a good note. We'll do all of that next.
Folks, we got a new sponsor, DoorDash, and they are taking it up a notch, to say the least. So let's say you want to make pancakes one morning, but you don't have the syrup, and you don't want to run out for that. Or it's Sunday morning, and you're going to make a cup of coffee, and you don't have the creamer. Or any of those type of situations, you get in touch with DoorDash now. They have grocery deliver. They can get you what you want right when you need it. So everyone loves getting what you want right to your door, and unbelievable convenience. We get so much delivery around here. It gets you're pretty used to it. It's wonderful. But with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week or order last minute cravings conveniently. My wife was cooking yesterday, Sunday, while I was watching, glued to obviously NFL, and she didn't want to run out for one little thing, so they had it delivered. It was great. We've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites. Now you can get grocery delivered that actually delivers too. So you'll get exactly what you ordered, or they'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries, just like you picked them yourself. You can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. So get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to $20 when you use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. That's LOCKEDONNFL. It's a limited time offer. Terms apply. So jump on that now. That's 50% off up to 20 minutes and $0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code LOCKEDONNFL. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Every dayers, on tomorrow's show, Matt and I will be back. We'll be talking Dynasty waiver wire targets for week 3. So check out tomorrow's episode. We're talking about some Dynasty transactions you should be making. All right, Matt, any other losers from week 3? Some players maybe you're worried about as we move into week 4 of the NFL season?
Falcons passing game as a whole. Rough.
I think we could talk Falcons passing game. We could talk Justin Fields. Actually, we're going to talk Justin Fields. We're going to talk Justin Fields later in the week. He might have been the most obvious dynasty loser yet again. He's got the crown, but you're right. Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I mean, we just keep doing the same thing with these guys. London, 2 catches for 31 yards. Kyle Pitts led the Falcons, 5 catches for 41 yards. I saw that he's up to 100 total yards on the season now through 3 weeks. That's certainly not what we expected. And I mean, we know these players are talented enough that they're going to pop off with huge games. They're going to have 80 yards and a touchdown, 100 yards and a touchdown. I don't know when that's happening. And it's tough to rely on them and guess when that game might be coming. These players are so frustrating. The offense is frustrating. The quarterback situation is frustrating. But the Falcons keep winning, or at least keep playing tough, right? Like, this coaching staff's not going anywhere anytime soon. We might have to get used to this.
Yeah, I think that's the case, and it's heartbreaking in a way because, first off, I don't know if the Falcons are going to beat good teams. I mean, fortunately, they have a ridiculously easy schedule, so there's a lot of Falcon football ahead of them. And what I mean is their script: run the ball, control the clock, short passes, that type of thing. But I also mostly believe that they're going to be in the quarterback market after this year. I mean, Ritter bugs me. I mean, it takes him a while to get warmed up. He misses open receivers. Watching Lions, Falcons, Pitts is screaming downfield. He's got like a 5-yard cushion over the Lions defender, and Ritter throws it over his head. And it just seems like that happens every week. And now London's getting sucked into that situation because, like you, I check out all these advanced metrics, and Pitt's average depth of target is super high. They use him exactly like a wide receiver. And frankly, he's open a lot, but he's either cursed or like the most unlucky fantasy guy that I've ever seen, because everything keeps lending itself. He should have big games, and he never, ever does.
Yeah. So frustrating.
Yeah.
Are you buying low on those two, Drake London, Kyle Pitts? I think their value is dropping. We're essentially a year plus into this now of, we know the talent's there, but the production's not. Are you willing to go after these guys and sit them on your bench for a while?
Yeah, but I just keep reinvesting in these same bad stocks over and over. Like, when should someone say, just stop doing it, Matt? You're like a Kyle Pitts addict. I mean, just so yes, because I do believe that if all these underlying metrics tell you it's going to happen, it probably will. And I also think there's a chance there's a better, different quarterback there next year. So yes, but they're never going to be a pass happy offense.
Yeah, not with Ritter, and probably not with Arthur Smith either.
Yeah, right.
Let's end on a positive note. I had one more winner I wanted to go back to and get your thoughts on. I was really impressed with Jerome Ford. Of course, Ford was kind of the story of last week following the injury to Nick Chubb, and came into that game against Steelers, played really, really well, and in redraft circles became the waiver wire pickup maybe of the year in dynasty leagues. He was mostly already rostered, at least in my leagues. But then there was the idea of, wait, has to turn around and play the best run defense in the league, the Tennessee Titans. So get him if you can, but maybe don't start him in week 3. And again, the stat line kind of meager, 10 carries, 18 yards, but he did find the end zone, also caught a couple passes for 33 yards and a great catch for a touchdown. So he scores twice, ends up with a really nice fantasy box score. And I'm just thinking, if he got that done against the Titans, I can't wait to see him against some lesser defenses around the league.
Great point. And they seem to really like him. I mean, the offseason showed that even while he was fighting injuries and stuff, that until Chubb went down, they didn't make running back moves. They look at him as the clear 2 behind Chubb. And their defense has been by far the best in the league, which should keep them able to run the football against any opponent. I thought this was Watson's best game as a Brown. So maybe you start to back some people off the line of scrimmage. They have an awesome set of guards and really good O-line in general. And I think Ford on his own is a good football player, a talented all-around back. So, yeah, I'm in. I mean, I think he's going to have a really good year.
There's a little bit of good news in the days following the injury to Nick Chubb that maybe it wasn't as bad as initially thought. Maybe he just suffered, I believe it was an MCL tear, and the reported timeline goes from 15-month recovery to 6 to 8 month recovery. So still obviously very serious, still done for the year, but maybe not as bad as we first thought. So in a dynasty league, Matt, would you rather have Nick Chubb or Jerome Ford?
Chubb. I mean, I think this latest news implies he should come back to being himself this time next year or by week 1 next year. He's so special. I'm going to stick with Chubb, but that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm going the other way. I'll take Jerome Ford. The production that I expect him to give this year, obviously quite a bit younger. And I mean, Nick Chubb could be 29 before we see him on the field again, depending on the timeline, the extent of that injury. It sounds like until he actually undergoes the surgery, they won't know for sure. So still obviously cautious about that injury. That is going to do it for today's show. Please make sure you download and subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Remember to follow the show at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. And I'm Ryan, MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.